For all, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that because that was set up almost like, well, I guess it was for Dr. Death Steve Williams. They assumed that he was going to take his whole thing, and I guess that was going to be after that he was going to be an opponent for me. And
yeah,
so all of a sudden the word comes down, and I barely remember this. So you take me through what your thoughts were when you heard about this, because I was on the inside, but I was looking in from the outside, thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm going to fight Dr. Death, or I'm going to work with Dr. Death after this, and boy, all of a sudden it didn't go as planned. So when you guys, some of you guys that were used to duking it out, Bart, you, all those guys, what were you thinking?
Well, I know I was riding with Bart at the time. Like you said, the whole thing was set up for Steve to come in because they didn't want to just all of a sudden put him with you and run a program. They wanted to bring him in, build him up, and the Brawl for All was a way to build him up to start working with you. And so they decided on this Brawl for All, I can't remember who came up with this crazy concept, but I wasn't even supposed to be in it. I wasn't even on their radar to be in it. That Tiger Ali Singh backed out of it, and he said he was going to beat everybody, but then when it came down to it, he backed out of it. And so Pritchard called me and asked me if I wanted to be in it, and so I was. So I got in it. And so when Blackman heard about it, he wanted in. So they put Steve in it, and actually I think Blackman probably would have won the whole thing, but he was taking this thing so seriously, and this is the mindset of Steve Blackman. He was taking this thing so seriously. He was actually working out with guys, preparing for this Brawl for All, shooting in, taking guys down, like, obviously boxing was included. He was practicing doing that. And this guy that he was practicing with, training with, was a lot heavier than Steve. And the guy ended up rolling on his knee and messed his knee up. So Steve had to back out of it. Obviously Bart was in it. And when I was riding with Bart Gunn at the time, and he had called Bruce Pritchard and told Bruce that he was going to win the whole thing. And Bruce says, I have no doubt you will. Good for you. I think you'll do well in it, blah, blah, blah. And Bart was like, no, Bruce, because I think he actually thought Bruce was patronizing him. And he's like, no, Bruce, I'm going to win this whole thing. Long story short, Bart ended up winning it. But on the way there, when Bart did fight Steve Williams and knock Steve out, that actually screwed up their whole plans for Steve Williams to work with you. And because they had no idea Bart was going to knock him out. And he was, and the thing is too, see, during that whole fight between Bart and Steve Williams, the scorecards were completely wrong because the boys knew that the fix was in on that deal.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and watch it, Bart actually took Steve down more than Steve took him down, and Bart outpunched him, but yet the scorecards had Steve Williams ahead. And like Bart said, if they would have just told me what the deal was, he would have had no problem putting Steve over, basically. And so, but Bart just went out there and did what Bart does, and Bart knocked him out and ended up screwing up their whole thing. And so, and that's how Bart ended up moving on and obviously knocking out Godfather, knocking out Bradshaw, and making his way to the end. And but as far as Steve Williams, I mean, I was on JR's podcast about this whole thing because JR was saying that he didn't pay off Steve to win, and I was just going by what I heard Steve say. And Steve's not here to defend himself, so I'm not really going to talk about it because we already talked about it. Me and JR already discussed it. But it just screwed up their whole storyline as far as Steve working with you when Bart knocked Steve out, because their whole plan was for Steve Williams to win the whole thing, and they thought he was. And actually, the sad part about this whole thing is seeing somebody like Steve Williams get knocked out because of who he was, how big of a deal he was, and what a stud he was. And it was just really tough seeing that happen. But the boys all popped when it happened because JR was going around telling everybody how Steve Williams was going to walk through everybody. And people were tired of hearing that. The boys were tired of hearing that. And when Bart knocked him out, the boys, it just blew the roof off the back when the boys popped because everybody was sold out at the monitor watching the thing. And when Bart knocked him out, the boys popped.
And the thing about it was, because Dr. Death Steve Williams was a huge star in Japan, along with Terry Gordy, and look at Hansen and Brody. All of those guys were over like gods in Japan. To bring Dr. Death Steve Williams over here, he's like, 4-time All-American at Oklahoma. So, yeah, a lot of notoriety in Oklahoma, watch territory, but on the big platform, because he'd spent so much time in Japan, and they decided to have this to make him, for me, as a formidable opponent. And that's a quick way to get it over. But turns out, man, when we're out there working, and it's very competitive, but we're working, we're cooperating with each other, we're trusting each other with our bodies, all of a sudden you turn something into a shoot. And, man, every single time there was a fight, dude, every monitor was sold out because all the boys, you kind of knew how it was supposed to be skewed. But, dude, when you throw on a full-on shoot, and these are guys that, this is an opportunity.
Right. On top of winning $100,000? Shit. Come on.
It was great.
Exactly. How can you – and see, that's the thing. It's like you cannot – plan for something like that to work out in your favor, because it's not. When you dangle $100,000 carrot in front of somebody, especially a bunch of hungry boys, it's not going to work out like you think it is. And it didn't. And unfortunately, it didn't. And and you really stop and think about it, because of who Steve was, like you said, an All-American football player. He's a big deal in Japan. And then all that gets just wiped clean from getting knocked out. It's like, it's all of his credibility almost went out the window in a sense. It didn't, but it did, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And it's like they're bringing in this guy that's supposed to be one of the baddest men on the planet, and then Bart knocks him out. It almost wipes out his whole credibility, even though anybody can get knocked out at any given second. And that's why you don't pit the boys against each other like that. It was a bad idea to start with. And it's like, and the thing is, it's like, if they wanted him to work with you, there's a whole bunch of different ways to get him there, instead of having to come in and just, and try to do a shoot fight for $100,000. And it's not going to work out. Not going to work out. There's so many different avenues to get him to where he needed to be to work with you than to do that.
Did anything out of that surprise you, out of any of the matchups, any of the outcomes? Or did it surprise you that Bart was knocking everybody out other than yourself? Did you know what kind of fighter he was? Because I'd talked to Billy Gunn, because, man, we traveled a lot together. And then Bart would jump in there every now and then and stand at the Econo Lodge and those old, Red Deer, Mulehead, whatever it's called, all those towns up there in Canada. Man, we were hanging around. I never knew that Bart was such a badass fighter. And Billy goes, "Oh no, dude." He goes, in Apopka, wherever it was he's from, or Titus, Florida, wherever it is. I can't remember, but he says, man, he goes, when Bart walks in the bar, he's the man.
Yeah. I had no idea how bad he was. I knew he was, it's like, he's a big freaking, country boy. Obviously there is some, there's a lot of toughness there, but I didn't realize to what extent until I started watching him drop everybody. It's like, holy hell, I guess I survived that sumbitch. I don't know how I did, because I know he hit me, Steve. I was on one side of the ring, and when he hit me, I was on the other side, and I stood there, and I was like, how in the fuck did I get over here? I did. In the middle, I was like, how did I get over here? And all I know is I got hit, and next thing I was on the other side of the ring, and I was standing there. I was like, how in the hell did I get over here? And but I know he hits like a mule. I do know that. And but it didn't. It's like, it did surprise me that he walked through everybody like he did. It shocked me.
Hey, man, I know how it is. I know how it feels to walk out in front of a crowd and get into a squared circle and have a match, as well as you. All of a sudden, take me back to, it's the moment is now. You're walking out for that first fight, and it's a shoot. You've got boxing gloves on. You've probably thrown hands in the past for sure in fights, but now all of a sudden you've got these big-ass gloves. You're walking into a shoot. What was running through your mind as you walked to that ring and stepped through the ropes?
Not losing. That was what was going through my mind. It's not losing and getting knocked out.
But obviously, it was a damn sure different state of mind than going out there to put on a match.
Oh, absolutely. the whole thing I was thinking is obviously I wanted to win, you know, but I had no idea. I mean, the big ass boxing gloves, it just, those things, they were pretty damn soft. But the thing is, it's like when you're out there, I mean, the shit's real. It's like, okay, we're fixing to fight for real. And completely different mindset from going in the ring and wrestling, because it's like, okay, we know what we got to do. And as far as fighting, it's just whatever happens, happens. And that's the mindset that I was going with, you know. And because me and Bart, we agreed not to shoot in on each other. That's one thing, because we watched the past fights, and they were, to me, I thought they were kind of boring, because guys shooting in on each other, and it was like going down to the mat, and we wanted to fight, and that's what we agreed to do. It's like, okay, you don't shoot in on me, I won't shoot in on you, and we'll just stand there and fight. And that's what we did. And, you know, obviously he ended up moving on, which I'm happy for him, but it would have been nice. I mean, I still got $5,000 for just getting in the thing, but it's a whole completely different mindset, because first of all, everybody's ready to fight until they get hit with that first punch, and then it changes their whole freaking mind. It's like, okay, I didn't want to do this. But not saying that was with me, because I've been in fights before, and it's like, you know, you get hit, and you just throw back. But with Bart, when he hits you, you know you've been hit. It's like, I might as well have got ran over by a fucking truck. And that's so. But I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Hey, man, I remember one time